Dear students, today our topic is South Asia as a region. In this lecture, you will get acquainted with the concept of region because the title of the topic itself prompts us that understanding the concept of region will act as a torchbearer while defining the South Asia as a region. The lecture will also enable you to analytically understand the intricacies of South Asia as a region. Moreover, you will learn the historicity of the term South Asia and its entry into the lexicon of the discipline. Finally, a key theme of the lecture will make you to understand critically the role of SAARC in region building in South Asia. Dear students, South Asia is a realm of one of the oldest civilizations in the world where people from all races and religions have coexisted over a long period of time. This layering of different cultures has given it a unique identity that is unparalleled anywhere else in the world. The 8 independent nations of the region are India, Bangladesh, Pakistan, Nepal, Sri Lanka, Bhutan, Maldives and Afghanistan. India has been the central core of this region both physically and culturally. The other nations form the peripheral region that has been influenced historically and politically by the core for many centuries. The region is home to over 1/5 of the world's population. It sits atop a globally strategic location, watching over key sea lanes and offering the most attractive transit route to some of the richest energy reserves in Central Asia. The region is rife with conflict and with nuclear weapons and global terrorism in the mix. Its future has profound security implications for the rest of the world, and more recently, its economic potential attracted great positive attention, principally in the case of India, but also for the region in general. So, dear students, before we go on board on a discussion of defining South Asia as a region, it is indispensable to outline the term region. The concept of region is in essence a contested concept owing to the disagreement of views about what constitutes a region. Some scholars emphasize geographical proximity while others give importance to the cognitive and ideational factors. Yet, a third group seeks to combine the two perspectives to define a region. Geography has been the most common element in the definition of mostly all scholars defining the region. They agree that a region should be characterized by some degree of geographic contiguity. However, there is significant disagreement upon the importance that is given to geography as a dimension of region. Geography is fundamental aspect to the region to intellectuals like Palmer and Billige and Mueller, as they suggest the region as an arrangement of neatly demarcated territories. Many scholars, however, find the essentialist conventional view of defining a region primarily based on the geographical proximity factor problematic, because it presupposes an objective static phenomena which ignores the dynamics of social and political forces. Scholars belonging to the constructivist school of thought in particular dismiss geographic proximity as a critical factor and define region in non-physical terms. They argue nations sharing a communal identity comprise a region regardless of their location. According to Amitav Acharya, regions are not a geographic given but are socially constructed, made and remade through interactions. Peter J. Katzenstein similarly maintains that regions' geographic designations are not real, natural, or essential. They are socially constructed and politically contested and thus open to change. A third group of scholars seeks to combine the two perspectives and argues that members of a common region generally share cultural, economic, linguistic, and political ties. Kim Anderson and Hedge Norheim have noted that while there is no ideal definition of a region, pragmatism would suggest basing the definition on the major continents and subdividing them somewhat according to a combination of cultural, language, religious, and stage of development criteria. Paul also maintains that a region can be defined as a cluster of states that are proximate to each other and are interconnected in spatial, cultural, and ideational terms in a significant and distinguishable manner. From the above conceptual controversy, a common ground to define the region can be formulated by incorporating all these indicators that have been identified by scholars and confirm the existence of a region. A set of nations in close geographical proximity with each other can be categorized as a region when first and foremost they share a certain commonality of interests. These interests could incorporate a whole gamut of social, economic, political, cultural, historical, and other factors. Secondly, this set of nations should be sufficiently enlightened so as to understand the significance of placing cooperation above conflict in the conduct of interstate relations. This should also be bolstered by a collective desire to come together on a common plank to create some lasting mechanism for regional cooperation. Keeping the above conceptual controversy into perspective, let us investigate the intricacies of defining South Asia as a region. Apparently, there should not be a controversy over the regional definition of South Asia because it arguably can be defined in terms of the region's key institution, the South Asian Association for Regional Cooperation, SAARC, as all the states in the subcontinent's geographical area are members of the organization. A closer scrutiny, however, would reveal that defining South Asia as a region in the context of SAARC is not as simple as it may appear. In order to analyze the complexity of defining South Asia as a region, let us first explore the historical background to the rise of the term South Asia to identify the region. The term South Asia entered the regional lexicon only recently. Particularly, it got an official stamp by the establishment of SAARC in the 1980s. Historically, the term India or the Indian subcontinent was widely used, primarily based on the idea of civilizational unity and historical continuity, although it encountered numerous contestations. The British colonial rule unified the erstwhile disparate areas of the subcontinent by spreading communication such as roads and rail links, which injected a sense of unity, but the colonial policy of divide and rule gave rise to the politics of difference, which not only resulted in the partition of India in 1947, as quoted by Hudson and Shashi Tharoor. It also left legacies which continued to negatively affect the regional international relations, thus undermining the regional idea of South Asia. The term South Asia was first used outside the region and hence has an exogenous origin, courtesy of research centers that were established in US universities following the end of World War II, particularly in the 1960s, and US State Department briefing document on the region, that is the subcontinent of South Asia, 1959. The terms exogenous origin can also be located in Europe. For example, Germany's Heidelberg University established the South Asia Institute in 1962. Although its mandate included all the nations of today's South and Southeast Asia, implying that it meant Southern Asia. It was indeed consistent with the dominant narrative of the time in academic circles, in which Southern Asia covered both the regions of contemporary South and Southeast Asia. International institutions such as the UN, World Bank, Asian Development Bank, etc., and American research centers also began to use the term South Asia in their documents, but they defined the region in their own ways by lumping it with Central Asia, part of West Asia, or Southeast Asia. It is evident that the meaning of South Asia in those usages was imprecise, and these usages had no or negligible impact on the initiatives of region building in later years. In terms of policy practices of the regional states, there was little indication of conceiving South Asia as a region before the late 1970s. Indeed, following the British withdrawal from the subcontinent, the thinking about regionalism or region building was geographically expansive, encompassing the whole Asian continent, privileging the ideology of Pan-Asianism. Such an idea was particularly promoted by India. Even before the colonial rule formally came to an end, independent India's would-be Prime Minister Jawaharlal Nehru convened the first Asian Relations Conference in New Delhi from 23rd March to 2nd April 1947, in which cooperation among Asian nations was sought. The objectives of that conference were to bring together the leading men and women of Asia on a common platform to study the problems of common concern to the people of the continent, to focus attention on social, economic, and cultural problems of the different nations of the Asia, and to foster mutual contact and understanding. At another Asian Relations Conference on Indonesia convened in January 1949 in New Delhi, a resolution called for the withdrawal of the Dutch forces from Indonesia and granting it complete independence. This call was made based on the spirit of Asian solidarity. The issue of Pan-Asian cooperation was also discussed at the Baguio Conference in the Philippines in May 1950, and then at Colombo Powers Conference in April 1954. In 1955, at Bandung, Indonesia, an even larger Afro-Asian solidarity and policy coordination plan, the Non-Aligned Movement, was launched. Those Pan-Asian regional cooperation and integration schemes failed because, number first, they were founded on hope rather than reality. And number second, post-colonial realities soon began to surface and consequently moved the focus of the newly independent states from regional integration to national security and economic development. Subsequently, region building in Asia began to be developed along sub-regional lines, that is Southeast Asia, South Asia, etc., as they appeared more manageable and viable, implying that region building subsequently became more narrowly focused. The discussion highlights that although the term South Asia was used exogenously before the 1970s, its meaning was indeterminate and varied. Indeed, there was little clarity in the meaning of the term in geographical, ideational, emotional, and interactive senses. And such usages probably did not have or had little impact, if any, in defining the South Asia as a region in later years. Dear students, after investigating the historical background of South Asia, let us now analyze the meaning of and discourses about South Asia as an economic region, security region, and cultural region, and look how region building through SAARC in the past decades has produced varied ideas of South Asia. So first, SAARC, region building, and multiple narratives of South Asia will be discussed. The first generation Asian regionalism initiatives following the World War II, as discussed above, failed, but they paved the way for the rise of more narrowly focused regionalist projects in Asia. The establishment of South Asian Association for Regional Cooperation in 1985 was such a regionalist project. It was the first formal region building initiative in South Asia in which the term South Asia became official and arguably emerged as the dominant term to define the region. Of course, by the time SAARC was formed, South Asia was the only politically neutral term which was acceptable to all regional states. More than 3 decades have passed since the initiation of the regionalist project. How much clarity has emerged in defining the region of South Asia? As below analysis will highlight, the idea of South Asia remains as contested as ever, and region building in the past 3 decades has produced even more competing narratives and discourses about the region. Apparently, SAARC appears to be an impressive regional organization in terms of the identified areas of cooperation, but it has failed to implement most of them, which has generated the view amongst scholars that SAARC's achievements are mostly on paper. While the smaller members of SAARC generally have been enthusiastic about activities of the organization, India and Pakistan have shown varying degrees of interest in the regionalist project. Indeed, the clashing interests of the latter 2 states have primarily hindered the progress of SAARC. The lack of progress in the regionalist project implies that the member states have failed to harmonize their competing visions and discourses about the region. More to it, the SARC process has added new dimensions to the pre-existing multiple discourses and narratives. These discourses and narratives become more evident if we discuss the ideas of South Asia in terms of economic, security, and cultural region. Let us discuss them one by one. Economic region. South Asian states have contrasting ideas about economic region. SARC could not pull them to a common narrative in the past 3 decades. Indeed, the SARC process has generated multiple discourses and interpretations about it. The states of the region pursued varied economic policies, from socialist-oriented mixed economy to import substitution and economic autarky before the establishment of SARC. They were mostly dependent on external economic aid and were considerably outward looking instead of seeking trade and economic relationships with regional states. The reactions from the regional states to the Bangladesh's proposal for a regional organization also highlight their contrasting perspectives about South Asia as an economic region. Although smaller states of the region enthusiastically supported Bangladesh's regional grouping proposal, the reactions from New Delhi and Islamabad were lukewarm, hesitant, and cautious. Both, of course, eventually joined the organization. India joined it because it did not want to be isolated further in the region. Pakistan also joined the organization because it feared that if it did not do so, it could be left out of the arrangement and become isolated in the region. Both the states, however, remained cautious about their support to the activities of the organization, while the smaller states extended their wholehearted support to SARC. The contrasting economic regional visions also became apparent when SARC moved from functional issues to cooperation in substantive economic areas. In 1993, the SARC Preferential Trading Arrangement Agreement was concluded, which aimed to promote intra-SARC trade. The agreement was viewed as significant achievement of the organization. Then, in another bold economic cooperation initiative, the South Asian Free Trade Area SAFTA agreement was signed in 2004, which aimed to create a regional free trade area by 2016, which was not achieved due to a hostile relationship between India and Pakistan. While smaller states wholeheartedly supported the two initiatives, India and Pakistan could not extend full cooperation due to their strategic rivalry. It should, however, be noted that New Delhi was more supportive to the two initiatives, while Islamabad could not extend full support due to its concern that they would lead to greater Indian influence in the region. To summarize, SARC could be the primary vehicle to build South Asian economic region, and other ideas could be integrated within the core idea. But that did not happen. Instead, multiple ideas and discourses on economic regionalism have flourished in contemporary South Asia. Looking towards the second, that is security region, the discourses and narratives about South Asia as a security region are also varied. 3 decades of regionalism could not bring any coherence in the security outlook and discourses of the regional states. The region's status as a security region has remained as contested as ever. As discussed earlier, South Asia is an Indo-centric region. India's regional security discourse is built on the perception of its preeminence in South Asia. New Delhi equates India's security with the region's security and views the regional states as its legitimate security sphere. The regional states strongly resent India's regional security doctrine. They are concerned about India's strategic motivations and the impact of power asymmetry on their status as a sovereign political entities. Such concerns accentuated further following the merger of erstwhile independent Sikkim with the Indian Union in 1975. India's neighbors have responded by adopting various strategies ranging from coming closer to India, bandwagoning, to building a cooperative security structure through SAARC to different forms of power balancing. Pakistan's view that India is the key source of regional insecurity and the chief threat to Pakistan's survival as a state. Since 1947, Pakistan has consistently maintained such a security discourse. To counter the perceived Indian threat, Pakistan employs a balance of power strategy, as quoted by Chakma in 2009. Two narratives are apparent in the discourse of small SAARC members about security. First, they view that SAARC would help to overcome their security predicament vis-a-vis India and Pakistan and consolidate their political sovereignty by creating a cooperative security structure. This is a key reason, in addition to expectation of economic benefits, why smaller states wholeheartedly supported SAARC in the beginning. This perception of smaller states can be contrasted with the perception of the two big member states of SAARC. Contradictory to the first, the second narrative is that they need to pursue a policy of power balancing by fostering better relations with extra-regional big powers to countervail Indian and Pakistani power and safeguard their political sovereignty, as quoted by Chakma in 2009. Of course, Bhutan's policy can be contrasted in this context, and it seems that Thimphu follows a bandwagoning strategy by coming closer to India. Put simply, there are different discourses and narratives in the smaller SAARC nations about South Asia as a security region. Thus, the discussion highlights contrasting ideas and narratives about South Asia as a security region. India's security discourse has multiple narratives, but it is informed by realist orientation in which power approach to security is dominant. This framework is contradictory to the vision of a security region conceived in SAARC. Pakistan's security policy is also realist oriented, but it is primarily based on the idea of countering Indian power. Similar to India, Pakistan's security approach is also contradictory to the idea of SAARC. The security vision of SAARC is reflected in the perception of the smaller states, yet contradicting this position, some of them see closer ties with external big powers in order to neutralize the impact of Indian and Pakistani power on their sovereignty. Moving to the cultural region, the discourses on culture, identity and belongingness in South Asian states present contested narrative about South Asia as a cultural region. while India emphasizes the existence of a subcontinental cultural unity underpinned by civilizational and historical continuity, others emphasize the politics of difference to demonstrate their distinct identity relative to India. This has to do with the politics of nation building in the age of nation state in the post-colonial subcontinent. Sudipta Kaviraj maintains that state formation in India, Pakistan and Bangladesh make it difficult to think of South Asia as a space of emotional inhabitants. In the Indian view, the subcontinental culture is indivisible and unique, which is underpinned by civilizational and historical continuity. Notwithstanding the diversity of cultures, the dominant Indian narrative is that there is a coherence and unity in them, unity in diversity. But the Indian narrative of one civilization or shared history is contested by others. The 1947 partition, the breakup of Pakistan in 1971, and in general the arrival of nation state are manifestations of contestations to the Indian cultural narrative. The politics of difference pursued by Pakistan and Bangladesh essentially means opposition to the Indian narrative of civilizational unity of the subcontinent and its historical continuity. Therefore, it is arguable that the idea of cultural unity in South Asia is hugely contested. The cultural identity contestations are set to continue in South Asia in the foreseeable future as part of the politics of nation-state systems. A vibrant SAARC can reduce the degree of contestations. Yet the region's nation-states will continue to build their own cultural identity as a strategy of strengthening their sovereignty. Dear students, from the preceding discussion, it has been demonstrated how SAARC has not only failed to bring any clarity in South Asia's regional definition, it has also added new dimensions to the existing multiple ideas of South Asia. It was hoped that region building through SAARC would bring clarity in South Asia's regional definition. Although the analysis has highlighted this has not happened. Instead, new dimensions, as noted above, have been added to the already existing multiple ideas of South Asia. The narratives and meanings of region vary from nation to nation and even within a state. These discourses and narratives become clear if South Asia is explained in terms of economic, security and cultural region. The South Asian states have different understandings of the region along these lines. Also, national narratives about the region as analyzed are incompatible with each other and they have evolved over time. With this, we are signing off our today's lecture. Thank you very much.